Hey there, and welcome back to Tim Talks Cooking. Today, we are talking Swedish meatballs, my friend. That's right, Keto Swedish Meatballs. Kind of a retro recipe from the 1960s, real cocktail party kind of a favorite, and it's sort of a buffet line kind of a favorite too, if I recall correctly. Anyway, I'm going to do a delicious rendition of this Ketofied using my cream of mushroom soup. There's a video for that. The link will pop up here pretty soon. Anyway, check that out if you're going to make this recipe. Because you know what you can't use? Canned cream of mushroom soup, which has a bunch of carbs in it. So anyway, let's get started. Here's what you'll need to make these delicious meatballs. Starts off with 1 pound of ground pork and 1 pound of ground beef. The ground beef is 80-20, I believe, but you could use any ratio of fat to meat that you like. I'm also going to use 1 large yellow onion that I've minced here into a pretty fine dice, as you can see. We're going to saute that in a minute. I've also got 2 large eggs. We're going to beat those up and put them in there. I've seen a lot of recipes recently that use crushed pork rinds instead of panko breadcrumbs. I'm going to try that here in this recipe. I've never done it before. I've got a cup of, these are called pork panko, and what you do is you take chicharron or pork rinds, the snack, right? And you put some in your blender and you grind it up until it's the texture of breadcrumbs. Nothing to it. You're also going to need 1/4 teaspoon of grated nutmeg, a teaspoon of kosher salt, and about 1/2 cup of chopped parsley. I'm going to use some of the meatballs and I'm going to use some for garnish as well. To make the mushroom gravy, start off with a pint of my keto cream of mushroom soup. The link will appear up here on the screen. This is 1/3 to 1/2 cup of sour cream, 1.5 cups, maybe a little more of beef bone broth or other broth or stock that you like. And I've got here 4 ounces or half a package of cream cheese. You'll also want some zoodles or maybe some cauliflower rice or something to serve these on. Here I've got mine started here and I'm just sweating them here. We'll dry them off later. I'm heating up my skillet over medium-high heat. This has been about 2 minutes now. And I'm going to pour in just a few tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. You could use whatever fat you like. You could use ghee, you could use butter. Distribute that around the pan. You can see it's starting to get nice and hot. It's starting to shimmer, as you can see. And now we've got a little bit of a sizzle. There we go. I'm going to get our onions in there. This will just take a moment, actually. And we're going to use some of our teaspoon of kosher salt to season them. We want to be careful. The soup is already seasoned, remember. And a little bit of freshly ground black pepper. We're going to make sure we get them all coated with the oil. And after about 3 minutes, this is what it looks like. And you can see my onions are translucent. They're colored by the color of the olive oil here. And they're nice and soft. They smell wonderful. And we're going to turn them off and let them cool. While the onions are cooling, let's get on with the rest of this. Here we've got our pork and our beef. I'm going to sprinkle the rest of the salt over it. Give it some freshly ground black pepper. Pretty much a matter of adding in all the other ingredients. The cup of the ground pork rinds. About 1/2 of the parsley. Here we've got our eggs. Not necessarily a big problem, I hope. Anyway, get all of that out of there. Moving along. We also don't want to forget the 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. Get that in there. There we go. And now our onion is cool enough to put in here. It's not going to cook anything anyway. Cooking it before prevents having the problem of crunchy, raw, or undercooked onion in the meatballs once we fry them up. And blend them together with a fork. If we want to take forever, I don't, so I'm going to go ahead and just use my hands, which are impeccably clean, as they always are when I cook. I'm going to roll up my sleeves, get in here, and just blend this together. As you can see, this is a pretty simple recipe. I think this is going to taste delicious. It already smells great, of course, with the sauteed onion. Now here, we don't want to overmix. We just want to, because if we do, this will be tough instead of lovely and tender. Just want to make sure all of the ingredients are fully incorporated. So don't stop too early either. To form the meatballs, take a small amount of the meat mixture in your hand. We want meatballs that are about an inch, inch and a half in diameter. This recipe makes 40. Roll it between your palms until you have a nice round shape, and then place it in your pan. And here's how they look once we're done. We've got 40 meatballs here, and now it's time to fry them up. I've been heating up this skillet for 3 minutes over medium-high heat because when I put the meatballs in there, I want it to be really hot, because what we want to do here is make a crust on each of the meatballs. You hear that sizzle? That's exactly what we want. I'm going to fill this saute pan up with meatballs, and we'll be right back. That pan is smoking hot, and now I've got all my meatballs in there. And by the way, if you can't get all of yours in one layer like this, then use 2 skillets or do them in 2 batches. You want to just have 1 layer of meatballs. Our goal here is to get a nice crust on the outside of the meatball down on that side. So I'm going to let this go. I'm not even going to touch them for 2 minutes at least before we turn them to get a crust on yet another side. After a minute or 2, you can give them a shake and see, look, we've already got a crust going on many of them. And actually they come loose as they're finished cooking. So I'm going to just keep moving these around until we've got a crust on 2 or maybe even 3 sides. After a few more minutes, here's what we've got. Look at how beautiful these are. Look at the crust on that. That is just exactly what we're looking for right there. I'm going to put it back in there. Notice we've got one that's broken. Oh no, that'll be our taster later on. These need to cook all the way through, and to do that I'm going to put the lid on, turn the heat down, and let them go for about another 5 minutes. It's been 5 minutes now, and our meatballs are done and tender and lovely. I'm going to remove them to a platter, just so I can remove the fat from the pan. We really have quite a bit in there, and some people on low-carb, high-fat diets, they like to include all of the fat. I've done this in recipes before. It can be delicious, but it can also be a little much. And so in this case, I think we're going to go ahead and get rid of that fat, because the sauce we have for this is really very high in fat and really delicious too. Now I've removed the excess fat from the pan, and I've been heating it up for about 2 minutes over medium-high heat again. You can see the remaining fat is bubbling, and there's some brown bits in the bottom. We like those brown bits. Those are called flavor. We're going to take our 1.5 cups of beef broth. We're going to use this to deglaze this pan. Now that I've got it hot, I'm going to turn it down. See how, as I scrape the bottom, the bits come up and dissolve into the stock. Or broth, or whatever this is beef bone broth, there we go. Anyway, to the liquid that you put in here. Often it's wine, sometimes just water. Next we're going to add in our soup. And that's rich, delicious, lovely cream soup. Full of cream. Really a delicious soup. Stir that in. I also have the sour cream. Now I have this over about a medium heat. Here we don't want to heat it too fast. We don't want it to separate. I'm also going to add in the cream cheese. I'm going to continue to stir this until everything melts together, and when it does, we'll be ready to put the meatballs back in.
I'm going to whisk this vigorously once in a while in order to help the cheese melt into it and to blend smoothly into our gravy. After about 5 minutes, I've added the meatballs back in, and now I'm going to put the lid on and warm the sauce for about 5 more minutes. Then it'll be ready to serve.
If you want to thicken your sauce up a little bit, you can always add a little xanthan gum. I just added 1/4 teaspoon. We're just going to stir it in gently. That's going to help make our sauce a little clingier. This is a little soupy. Of course, if you like it that way, go ahead and serve it like that. Well, all right, let's give this a taste. I've served this up on some zoodles here. Looks really good. Smells so good. So good. Melt in your mouth. Has that wonderful mushroom flavor with the onion. Really pretty strong even after sauteing it. Just delicious. That is just wonderful. This is going to make a wonderful lunch today. Along with maybe a little glass of red. Alright. Anyway, listen. Thanks so much for watching us here today at Tim Talks Cooking. Before you go, please don't forget to like, share, comment, and especially subscribe. Please subscribe. We'll catch you next time.